The night was heavy with rain. The kind that didn't simply fall, it attacked. Each drop struck the leaves like whispers of war. The forest breathed around her, dark and alive, every shadow stretching with hunger. Alara ran, barefoot, bloodied, broken. Her once white wedding gown clung to her like a shroud, mud swallowing the hem, lace torn by thorns that reached for her like hands from the underworld. Her heartbeat was a drum of panic, echoing louder than the thunder above. Every gasp burned, every step carved pain through her veins, because the bond, the sacred tie between Luna and Alpha had been severed. She had felt it snap inside her like glass underfoot. Moments ago, she'd stood at the altar beneath the moon's pale gaze, surrounded by the pack that had raised her. And then his words, cold, sharp, final. "I reject you, Alara." The sound of his voice still rang through her skull, steady as a death sentence. Alpha Rowan. The one she had loved since childhood. The one destiny had chosen for her. The one who looked at her under the eyes of their ancestors and saw only shame. Now his wolves hunted her. The storm drowned the forest in chaos. Branches cracked under her weight, roots clawed at her ankles. The scent of wet pine and iron hung thick in the air. Her lungs screamed, her skin slick with sweat and rain. But behind her came the howls, those haunting, enraged howls not of wild beasts, but of men, of the same pack that once called her Luna. Lightning ripped open the sky. For an instant, the world froze in a blaze of white, and she saw them, dark silhouettes racing through the trees, blades drawn, eyes glowing amber, loyal to Rowan, loyal to the Alpha who had cast her aside. A sob clawed at her throat, but she swallowed it back. She would not die begging, not tonight. She stumbled over a fallen log, caught herself on trembling hands. Mud splashed across her dress, streaked like war paint across her face. The scent of her own blood mixed with the rain, sharp, metallic, alive. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, restless and wounded. "Shift," it whispered, but she couldn't. The pain of rejection still knotted her spirit, chaining her to human fragility. Her power, the silver flame that marked her bloodline, flickered uselessly in her chest. "Not now," she breathed, voice cracking. "Please, not now," thunder answered. She forced herself forward, through bramble and darkness, until the trees thinned into a clearing lit only by the storm's furious light. Her knees hit the earth as she gasped for air. Around her, the world seemed to close in alive, ancient, watchful. The ground itself hummed with old magic. This place was forbidden, the Shadow Vale, where once the ancients had buried their secrets. No pack dared cross it, no one except those with nothing left to lose. And Alara had nothing left. She pressed a shaking hand against her chest, feeling her heart's erratic pulse. She wanted to scream, to tear the night open and demand to know why. Why him? Why her? Why destiny had chosen to humiliate her before every eye she'd ever known. But the forest did not answer. It only listened. Then footsteps. Soft, deliberate. Not the pounding rush of pursuit, but something slower. Watching. Alara froze. Her breath caught mid-chest. Lightning flashed again, and between the black ribs of the trees a figure, tall, still, cloaked in darkness so deep it seemed to drink the light itself. Her pulse thundered. She wanted to run, but her body betrayed her. It wasn't fear that anchored her in place. It was recognition. There was something familiar in that stillness. Something ancient in the calm that rolled from him, quiet and commanding all at once. Another flash and she saw them. Eyes. Not amber like Rowan's, not gold like the pack's. Silver, cold, glowing, unnatural. They locked on her. And for a moment, the storm itself seemed to pause. Every instinct screamed to move, to flee. Yet her heart, fragile and foolish, whispered something else. "You've seen those eyes before." The figure didn't move closer. Didn't speak. Only watched her as though he already knew her story, every wound, every lie, every secret buried beneath her skin. The rain eased to a trembling drizzle. The wind shifted, carrying his scent through the clearing, dark cedar, smoke, and something old, like winter air on the edge of a blade. Her throat tightened. "Who's there?" she whispered, though the answer scared her more than silence. The figure tilted his head slightly, a gesture both curious and mournful. You shouldn't be here. His voice murmured deep, low, rough like stone dragged across steel. Elara flinched. I don't care. They'll kill me if I go back. For a heartbeat, the forest held its breath. Then he stepped forward. Just enough for the lightning to reveal the sharp line of his jaw, the glint of wet hair falling across his face, and the faint scar that traced down from temple to cheek, a mark she had seen once before, long ago, on a warrior who vanished the night her parents died. Her breath hitched. You. But before the word could leave her lips, a howl split the sky closer this time, feral with rage. She turned, panic snapping through her limbs. They found me. The stranger's silver eyes narrowed. Keep running north. Don't stop until the ground turns white. Elara hesitated. Why are you helping me? He didn't answer. Instead, he looked past her, toward the sound of pursuit, and his voice dropped to a whisper almost to himself. Because I watched him throw away what was never his to begin with. Another bolt of lightning cracked the air. When Elara blinked, he was gone. Only the forest remained drenched and whispering. Her chest heaved, confusion clawing at her ribs. She didn't know who he was, didn't know what he meant. But something deep inside her, something buried in the marrow of her bones, believed him. She turned north. Her feet found the strength her heart had lost. The rain grew softer now, more like tears than fury, as she moved through the thinning trees. Each step was agony, but also defiance. Every breath she stole was a promise. She would not die as his discarded Luna. The world might have branded her unworthy, but the night whispered otherwise. It wrapped her in its cold arms, humming with old magic, the kind that recognized broken things. Behind her, the howls faded. Ahead, a faint light shimmered through the mist. Elara slowed, her heart thundering. She looked up. The moon had broken through the clouds, pale and perfect. And beneath it, across the open field, she saw it, the ruins of an old temple. Her mother had once told her stories of it, the altar of the first moon. A place where Luna spirits watched over the forsaken. A place said to answer only those who'd been betrayed. Her legs trembled as she stepped into the clearing. The air here felt thicker, charged with power and sorrow. Ancient runes glowed faintly on the stones, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. She sank to her knees before the altar. Rainwater ran down her face, mingling with tears she hadn't meant to shed. I don't know why this happened, she whispered to the sky. I don't know what I did wrong, but if the moon still sees me, if she still remembers my name, then help me. Please. Silence. And then, a whisper of wind that didn't belong to the storm. It circled her gently, cool against her skin. The symbols on the stones flared brighter. Her breath caught. For a moment, she thought she saw a figure in the moonlight, tall, still, eyes of silver, watching from the edge of the ruins. But when she blinked, the light folded into darkness. She didn't know whether to fear it or feel protected by it. And somewhere, beyond the trees, the unseen Alpha who had watched from the shadows turned away, the faintest trace of pain crossing his face. Because fate cruel, patient fate had just begun weaving their names together. And before the screen fades to black, the narrator's voice softens to a haunting whisper. Before we uncover the Alpha who watched from the shadows, subscribe to Moonlight's Chronicle, where every heartbeat hides a secret. The storm had quieted, but the silence it left behind was worse. Elara stumbled forward, every step slower than the last. Her gown clung heavy against her legs, her lungs scraping for air. The rain had thinned into a silver mist that drifted low between the trees, coiling around her like ghosts. The moon still watched, distant, cold. She didn't know how long she had been walking. The ache in her body had numbed to something deeper, an emptiness that made her question if she was still truly alive. Her hands were scratched raw, her bare feet sliced by stones. The forest floor had turned to slick mud that swallowed her steps without sound. Somewhere behind her, the howls had stopped. Maybe they had lost her. Or maybe they had decided she wasn't worth chasing anymore. The thought stung worse than rejection. Her legs buckled as she reached a ravine, a deep scar cutting through the forest. Water roared below, white with fury. The moonlight broke across it, turning the spray into glass. She leaned against a rock, chest heaving, vision blurring at the edges. Her strength was gone. Her will, cracked. She sank to her knees. The edge of the ravine shimmered dangerously close. She thought, Maybe this is where it ends. Maybe it was better to let the forest take her. Better to become another nameless whisper carried through the trees, than to crawl back to a world that had already buried her alive. She pressed a trembling palm to the wet ground. The earth was cold and honest beneath her hand. Her voice came out as a broken whisper. Mother Moon, if I was never meant to be Luna, then take me. I'm tired. Thunder answered in the distance, a low, sorrowful growl that rolled through the valley. Her eyelids fluttered. The mist thickened around her, curling like a blanket of smoke. The world tilted, her consciousness swaying. She welcomed it. The end would be quiet, peaceful, but just before the darkness claimed her, a voice cut through the storm, deep, raw, and steady. You shouldn't die for someone who never saw you. Her body froze. The sound wasn't imagined. It came from above her, from the shadows gathered at the tree line. The voice was rough, like gravel smoothed by time. But there was something else beneath it, something that made her pulse flicker back to life. Power, control, and pain. Elara tried to move, but her limbs refused. The mist parted as a tall figure stepped forward, his presence swallowing the clearing whole. He moved with the ease of a predator, quiet but sure. His cloak hung soaked against broad shoulders, dark hair clinging to his face, silver eyes gleaming like twin moons in the half-light. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. No one should look that composed under the wrath of a storm. No one human, at least. The stranger crouched before her, and the scent of him hit her: smoke, pine, and rain over steel. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, restless and confused. He reached out slowly, not to touch her, but to tilt her chin up with a single finger beneath her jaw. His touch was careful, almost reverent. Elara's breath trembled. Who are you? He studied her, his expression unreadable. Someone who shouldn't be here. His voice carried the weight of authority, but not the kind she was used to. It wasn't command through fear, it was command born of power restrained. She blinked, dazed. You're real? The faintest curve touched his lips, not quite a smile, more like a memory of one. Unfortunately, her gaze caught on the faint scar that traced down his cheek, thin and pale, like lightning frozen in skin. Recognition flickered, unbidden. She had seen him before on the outskirts of her pack's borders, years ago. The stories whispered in hushed voices by the fire came rushing back. The Shadowborn Alpha, Kael, exiled, dangerous, cursed by the moon herself. She felt her breath catch, her body instinctively inching back. You're the one they call the cursed Alpha. I've been called worse. His tone was quiet, unbothered, but his eyes, they held centuries of storms. She tried to rise, her pride fighting through exhaustion, but her strength betrayed her. Her knees gave out, the world tilted again. Before she could fall, his arm slid around her waist, catching her easily. Her fingers brushed against the fabric of his cloak. It was warm despite the rain, lined with something soft, thick. His strength was effortless. He could have crushed her if he wanted to. Instead, he simply held her there, steady as stone, careful as if she might break. Her pulse thudded against his chest. Why are you helping me? She whispered. His gaze lingered on her for a heartbeat too long before answering. Because I don't like watching good things die for the wrong reasons. The forest seemed to exhale around them, the rain softening to a steady hum. He shifted his weight and lifted her into his arms. She gasped, weakly protesting. I can walk. No, you can't, he said evenly. Not until you stop bleeding. Her protest faded on her tongue. His tone wasn't harsh, it was final, quiet, immovable. The kind of voice that had commanded armies once. He carried her through the forest as though she weighed nothing. Each step was deliberate, smooth, his breath steady. She watched him through half-lidded eyes. His profile was carved in shadows, sharp, regal, and weary all at once. There was no arrogance in him, no hunger for dominance, only restraint. And yet, beneath that calm, she felt it, the power, ancient, wild, the kind of strength that wasn't taken but born, tempered by loss. The world blurred as exhaustion tugged at her mind. But before sleep took her, she whispered, You know my name. He didn't look at her. His voice was a quiet confession. I've known it longer than he ever will. Her heart stumbled at the words. How? His jaw tightened. Rest. You'll need your strength. She wanted to ask more, but her body had nothing left to give. The rhythm of his steps became her lullaby, the warmth of his chest an anchor in the cold storm. She surrendered to the dark, the last thing she saw being the faint glow of his eyes cutting through the mist. When she woke, the world was different. The rain had stopped. A faint light bled through cracks in the wooden roof above her. She lay on a bed of furs inside a small cabin built deep in the forest, a place untouched by pack scent. Safe, but foreign. The smell of smoke drifted from a small fire crackling in the hearth. A kettle steamed beside it. The air was warm, humming with faint traces of magic. Her body ached, but the pain was dulled, her wounds cleaned and bound with cloth. She turned her head and froze. Kale sat in the corner, sharpening a blade by the firelight. His cloak was gone now, revealing a tunic of dark leather, torn at the shoulder. Scars ran down his arms like faded stories, each one whispering of battles she could only imagine. He didn't look up, but he spoke as if he could feel her eyes on him. You heal fast. That's good. Alara swallowed. Where am I? A border shelter. Hidden deep in the Shadowwood. Her throat tightened. The Shadowwood? That's off limits, he finished for her, still not looking up. To anyone who fears what they can't control. She frowned, sitting up slowly. So, you live here? I survive here. His words were simple, but the weight behind them was not. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the soft scrape of metal on stone. She watched him, trying to piece together the fragments of what she'd heard over the years. Kale, the rogue alpha who defied the council. The one said to have been cursed for spilling royal blood. The one who disappeared into the forests a decade ago, and became more myth than man. And now, here he was, saving her. Why? She asked again, quietly. You could have left me. He stopped sharpening the blade. The firelight flickered across his face, revealing an expression that was neither kind nor cruel, just painfully honest. I almost did. Her stomach tightened. Then why didn't you? He looked at her then, really looked, and in his eyes, she saw something raw recognition, and grief too deep for words. Because I remember what it's like to be betrayed by your own. The fire popped, scattering embers. Alara stared at him, her heart twisting. There was something about the way he said it quietly, without bitterness, that made her want to ask 1,000 questions. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she whispered, the others. They'll come for me. I know. They'll kill you if they find out you helped me. His mouth curved into the ghost of a smirk. They've been trying to kill me for years. It's become a rather dull sport. She should have been afraid. Everything about him, the way he moved, the way his presence filled the space, screamed danger. But fear didn't come. Something else did instead. Something she couldn't name yet. Kale stood, sliding the blade into its sheath. He crossed the room in 2 silent steps and knelt beside her. She tensed as his hand brushed her wrist, checking her pulse with the same measured calm he'd had since the forest. Your heart beats steady, he murmured. Good. You'll live. Alara looked up at him. Why does that matter to you? His gaze met hers. Because you're not meant to die yet. Yet? She repeated, a shiver running through her. There's more to your story than his rejection. His voice softened, a flicker of something unreadable in his expression. You just don't know it yet. Her heart hammered. And you do? Kale's eyes gleamed like stormlight. Enough to know the moon doesn't make mistakes. Not with souls like yours. She didn't know whether to be comforted or terrified. But as the fire crackled, the air between them thickened, charged with the unspoken, the unseen. For the first time since the altar, Alara felt something other than pain. She felt seen, and that was more dangerous than any curse. He was the alpha who shouldn't have cared. And she, the Luna who refused to die quietly. But fate wasn't done with either of them. The crackle of the fire was the only sound brave enough to disturb the silence that followed the storm. Its light danced across the cave walls, jagged, uneven, flickering like broken memories. Alara lay still beside it, wrapped in a worn fur cloak that did not belong to her. The scent of smoke and pine clung to her hair, But beneath it, faintly, there was something else, something wild and ancient, pulsing just beneath her skin. When her eyes opened, dawn had not yet claimed the sky. Only the dying embers painted her face in shades of amber and shadow. For a heartbeat, she didn't know where she was. Then it all rushed back: the altar, the crowd, the betrayal. Her chest tightened. She curled inward, as if the very memory could crush her ribs. Her hands trembled as she reached for the pendant around her neck. A simple moonstone cracked in half. Once, it symbolized her bond with Rowan. Now, it was just a reminder that love could be weaponized. A low growl of thunder rolled across the distant peaks. It sounded almost like laughter, cruel, echoing familiar. And then she saw him. Cale sat at the edge of the firelight, motionless. His back to her, his shoulders a dark silhouette against the silver mist that crept into the mouth of the cave. He hadn't slept. He didn't move like other wolves. Every breath seemed deliberate, restrained. The kind of stillness that comes only from those who've spent too long in the company of ghosts. When he spoke, his voice was low, roughened by the weight of things unsaid. "You dream loud." Elara's throat tightened. "Then maybe it's because I've spent too long swallowing my screams." He turned slowly, eyes catching the faint glow of the fire. They were not the golden hue of a typical alpha, his were silver, sharp and ancient, as though the moon herself had left fingerprints in his soul. For a moment, neither spoke. The space between them was filled only with the distant sound of rain dripping from the forest canopy outside. Then the memories began to claw their way out of her. Her voice in the flashback trembles like broken glass. She was back beneath the sacred archway, white petals swirling around her feet. The pack had gathered elders, betas, even pups, their faces glowing in torchlight. Her dress shimmered like frost, hand-sewn by the women of her lineage. She had believed foolishly, hopelessly, that this was the night her heart would finally rest. Then Rowan stepped forward. His jaw was tight, his eyes cold. "Elara of the Moonveil line," he had said, voice echoing across the clearing. "You are unworthy to stand before the moon goddess as my mate." The crowd gasped. She had reached for him, confused, trembling. "What are you saying?" He looked at her the way a wolf looks at something it intends to kill, not out of hatred, but fear. "You were never meant to be my Luna," he said. "You're tainted by your bloodline." The words struck harder than any blade. In that moment, the bond between them snapped, not quietly, but violently. The rejection burned through her veins, shattering everything sacred that tied her to the pack. She could feel it ripping through her, piece by piece, the mate mark fading, her wolf howling in agony. The world tilted, the petals turned red. Then came the whispers: curseborn, witch's daughter, silver flame. Her power, the secret she'd kept hidden even from Rowan, flared in that instant. Silver light had burst from her skin, uncontrolled, wild. The air shimmered, the altar cracked, and those who stood too close stepped back in terror. That was when she knew. It wasn't love he'd felt for her, it was fear. Back in the cave, the fire pops a small, sympathetic sound. Her fingers dug into the dirt beneath her. She didn't cry. The tears had already dried somewhere between the altar and the forest floor. "They called it a curse," she whispered. "But it's not. The silver flame isn't something I asked for. It's just a part of me. My parents died protecting it, protecting me. And for that, the pack branded me a monster." Cale said nothing. He sat there, still as stone, his expression unreadable, but his silence wasn't cold. It was the kind of silence that listens, that waits for truth to finish breaking before trying to hold the pieces. Finally, his gaze lifted, meeting hers. "I've seen curses that wear human faces," he said quietly. "And none of them looked like you." Elara flinched, as though the gentleness in his tone hurt more than cruelty ever could. No one had ever said her name or spoken to her like that before. "Don't," she murmured, voice cracking. "Don't make me believe you mean it." Cale tilted his head slightly, studying her. "You think I offer kindness? I don't. I speak what I see. And what I see," he leaned closer, voice dropping low, "is a wolf who survived her own pack. That's not weakness, Elara. That's power." Something flickered inside her, faint, uncertain. A spark that wanted to live. But then she saw it, the mark on his wrist. Dark, jagged, shaped like a crescent claw. Recognition struck like lightning. "You're Shadowborn," she whispered. "They say your pack was cursed. That the moon rejected you all." He gave a hollow laugh. "They say many things. Most of them true." He stood then, the firelight carving hard lines into his face, beauty shaped by tragedy. "I was born under an eclipse. My mother called it a blessing. The pack called it an omen. When the blood moon rose, my own father tried to kill me before I could shift. Said I was an abomination." His eyes darkened. "I killed him instead." Alara's breath caught. But he didn't say it with pride, he said it with the kind of weariness that only comes from carrying the weight of survival for too long. The silence stretched between them, fragile, almost sacred. Then softly she said, "You've been hunted before." Kale's gaze met hers, steady and unflinching. "By my own blood." The fire crackled, the wind sighed through the mouth of the cave, and somewhere in the distance, a lone wolf howled low and sorrowful. Alara's heart twisted. For the first time since her rejection, she felt something unfamiliar creeping in. Not safety, not trust, but recognition. She wasn't the only one who'd been broken by those meant to love her. And in that shared ruin, something fragile began to bloom, an understanding born not from words, but from the quiet ache of two wolves who no longer knew where they belonged. Kale turned away again, gaze lost to the storm outside. "Rest," he murmured. "The forest remembers those who bleed upon its soil. You'll need your strength before dawn." Her eyelids grew heavy. The silver flame inside her hummed softly, as if soothed by his presence. Before sleep took her, she whispered, "Why did you help me?" He didn't answer. But when she looked one last time, she saw at the faintest trace of something human flickering behind those silver eyes. Maybe pity. Maybe something else entirely. In that dark cave, beneath a bleeding sky, two souls scarred by rejection shared the same fragile fire. Neither trusted fate. Neither believed in mercy. Yet, somehow, beneath the ruin of who they'd been, a quiet promise formed, not of love, not yet, but of recognition. For the first time, Alara didn't feel invisible, and Kale, the rogue alpha cursed by the moon, found himself watching the way the firelight danced against her skin and wondering, against all logic, if perhaps the goddess he'd cursed his whole life had finally decided to answer. Dawn came slowly, not as light, but as breath. The forest exhaled a cool mist that glided low over the moss, cloaking the earth in white. The rain had stopped, but droplets clung to every leaf like tears that refused to fall. Alara followed Kale through the elderwood, the forest older than kings, older even than the packs themselves. Every step she took sank into centuries of fallen leaves, the scent of damp soil and secrets filling the air. Above them, branches arched together, forming a canopy so thick that even the sunlight came in whispers, yet the moonlight lingered. Here, even in morning, the silver glow of night never truly left. Her bare feet brushed over roots etched with strange, glowing lines, markings she didn't recognize but somehow understood. They pulsed faintly beneath her steps, like veins in the earth responding to her heartbeat. Kale walked ahead in silence, the long black cloak at his back whispering against the undergrowth. He moved with the stillness of someone who had walked this path before, or perhaps someone who had been waiting for her to. "Alara," he said at last, his voice low, threaded with something between warning and reverence. "Do you know where you stand?" She glanced around, trees rising like pillars, the air humming with old magic. "No." He turned slightly, his silver eyes catching the ghost light. "This is Elderwood, the first forest the moon ever touched. No pack claims it because no pack dares to. The stories say it remembers those who bear her fire." Her pulse quickened. "The silver flame?" He nodded once. "Your birthright." She shook her head, instinctively stepping back. "It's not mine. It destroyed everything I loved." Kale's gaze softened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he gestured for her to follow deeper. "Come. There's something you need to see." They moved until the trees began to thin, revealing an ancient clearing at the forest's heart. Stones stood in a perfect circle, 12 monoliths etched with runes, glowing faintly under the moon that refused to fade. In the center, a great slab of obsidian jutted from the ground, its surface slick as glass, its edges carved with wolves bowing toward a flame. The air changed. It wasn't just wind, It was awareness. The forest seemed to recognize her. Alara stepped closer, her chest tightening. What is this place? Kale's voice lowered. The Shrine of the First Flame. Built before the packs divided. It's where the moon chose her first alpha, and where she cursed the last one. Her breath trembled. And why bring me here? Because the carvings speak your name. She froze. Then slowly, hesitantly, she approached the stone. The carvings shimmered faintly, dull and ancient, until her fingers brushed the surface. The reaction was instant. Light burst from the obsidian like a heartbeat. The symbols flared white-hot, pulsing in rhythm with her veins. A soft hum rippled through the ground, spreading through the trees, the sky, the air itself. Kale stepped back, hand instinctively reaching for the dagger at his belt, not out of fear, but awe. Alara gasped, trying to pull her hand away, but the stone wouldn't release her. The hum became a song, low, melodic, ancient. Wind swirled around her, lifting her hair, her torn gown fluttering like a dying flame reigniting. Her eyes burned not with tears, but light. Silver poured from her pupils, tracing down her cheeks like liquid moonfire. Kale whispered, barely breathing, "Moon, help us." And then the vision came. She wasn't in the forest anymore. She stood on a battlefield made of stars, wolves of light circling an enormous silver flame that blazed at the world's center. From its heart emerged a figure hooded, faceless, but crowned in shadow. The wolves bowed. One by one, they turned to ash as the flame consumed them, leaving only one standing. Her. A voice ancient, feminine, trembling with eternity whispered through the void, "The rejected shall rise. The shadow shall claim what the moon denied. And from flame and ruin, a new alpha shall awaken." The words seared into her chest, branding her soul with fire and frost all at once. "Alara." Kale's voice sounded distant, far away, calling her back through layers of light and darkness. She fell to her knees. The world snapped back. The forest had gone utterly still. Even the wind dared not move. Kale rushed to her side, catching her before she collapsed fully. Her skin was warm, too warm, and faint silver light pulsed beneath it like embers. He pressed a hand to her cheek, trying to ground her. "Alara, look at me." Her eyes fluttered open, pupils glowing faintly. "It spoke to me." What did it say? Her lips trembled. "That the rejected will rise. That the shadow will claim what the moon denied." Kale froze. Every muscle in his body went rigid. "You've heard it before," she whispered, watching his reaction. He nodded slowly, jaw tightening. "When I was a boy, before my exile, the seer of my pack spoke those same words. The elders called it blasphemy, said it foretold the end of the bloodline blessed by the moon." She looked at him, realization dawning. "Your pack feared the shadow, mine feared the flame." He met her gaze. "And maybe that's why we survived, because we were meant to find each other." The words hung between them, fragile and dangerous. Alara swallowed hard. "You've been searching for me." His silence was answer enough. "Finally," he said it quietly, reverently. "I've hunted this prophecy across kingdoms. Every seer, every ruin, every whisper of the flame, all led here. To you." Her pulse pounded in her ears. "Why?" Kyle's eyes flickered, the silver in them darkening like stormlight. "Because the moon's chosen betrayed us all. The packs bow to a lie to alphas crowned by fear, not by truth. The silver flame was never meant to destroy. It was meant to restore." She shook her head, overwhelmed. "I can't be what you think I am." He stepped closer, voice soft but fierce. "You were never cursed, Alara. You were hidden by those who feared what would happen if you ever stopped running." Her breath hitched. "And what happens if I stop?" He didn't answer with words. He reached out hesitantly and placed his hand over her heart. The touch was light, but power hummed through the contact like lightning through water. "This," he whispered. "This is what happens. The flame wakes, the world remembers." The forest responded. The stones around them began to hum again, runes lighting in a slow cascade of silver fire. Shadows fled from the clearing as though chased by the dawn. Alara's voice broke. "I don't want to be worshipped. I just wanted to belong." Kale's expression softened, something raw, something almost tender. "Then belong to the truth." For a moment, Neither moved. The world seemed to hold its breath between them, light and shadow, flame and silence. The distance between their bodies burned hotter than any fire. Finally, Kale stepped back, breaking the spell. "The prophecy isn't finished," he said quietly. "And neither are we." He turned toward the forest's edge, but his voice carried, low and warning. "The flame's awakening will draw attention. Those who exiled you will feel it. They'll come." Alara rose slowly, the silver glow fading from her skin but not from her soul. "Then let them." He glanced back, and for the briefest heartbeat, his stoic mask slipped. There was admiration there, and something dangerous. Something that felt like fate. And so, beneath a sky that refused to choose between night and dawn, the cursed flame and the exiled shadow stood together for the first time, two pieces of a prophecy older than blood itself. The air trembled, the stones whispered, and the forest, the ancient witness of the moon's first promise, carried their names into eternity. Alara, Kale, the rejected and the forsaken, bound not by chains, but by destiny. The forest no longer whispered, it roared. By the time dawn clawed through the treetops, the elderwood had lost its calm. The air carried a warning, that sickening stillness before something terrible happens. Birds had vanished. Even the wind seemed to hide. Only the faint scent of smoke and blood lingered, drifting between the roots. Alara felt at first the shift in the air, the prickle at the back of her neck. Her instincts screamed run. Kale was already moving. He turned toward the east, where the light broke pale through the mist. His jaw clenched. "They're here." The words fell like a curse. Shadows moved between the trees, fast, deliberate, deadly. Arrows hissed through the air, slicing past her cheek. She gasped and stumbled backward. Kale caught her arm, yanking her down just as another arrow shattered the bark beside them. Splinters cut across her skin. "Stay low," he barked. Another volley followed, whistling death. He tackled her behind a fallen log, the wood shuddering under impact as shafts buried deep into it. Her pulse thundered in her throat. She turned to him, breathless. "It's Rowan's hunters. They tracked me." Kale's eyes glowed faintly, silver bleeding into darkness. "You brought them here." Her chest tightened. "I didn't mean to." "You lit the flame, Alara. Every creature tied to the moon felt it. He knows you live." Thunder rumbled above the canopy, but it wasn't the sky, it was her heart pounding in panic. "They'll kill you for me," she said, trembling. He looked at her, then wild, fierce, utterly unafraid. "Then we die together." The woods erupted. Shapes emerged from the fog, men and wolves both, Rowan's elite guard, each branded with the crest of the Silver Fang. Their armor glimmered faintly in dawnlight, their eyes cold, merciless. Kale stood before them, every muscle drawn tight. "You shouldn't have come here," he warned. The lead hunter stepped forward, raising a crossbow. "By order of Alpha Rowan, the traitor and the cursed are to be put down." Alara's breath caught. Her pulse screamed in her ears. Kale's lips curled a growl, low and dangerous. "Try." Then the world broke open. The first arrow never reached him. It dissolved midair in a burst of shadow. Kale's eyes burned molten silver as he shifted, not fully. Not yet. But enough to reveal the beast that lived inside him. His veins darkened, his skin rippling as claws burst from his fingers. He moved faster than sight. The first hunter fell before he even screamed, throat torn, bow shattered. The others hesitated only for a breath, then charged. The forest became a battlefield. Alara crouched low, heart hammering, torn between terror and awe. Kale fought like a storm, given flesh, brutal, precise, unstoppable. His movements were both graceful and savage, a dance of violence and survival, but there were too many. Steel clashed against claw, blood hit the air, and the world narrowed to chaos. She wanted to run, but something inside her refused. The silver flame pulsed under her skin, aching to be released. The bond she once shared with Rowan still lingered faintly, like a dying ember, feeding her pain and rage. Then she heard it, his voice, through the clash and screams, carried by the wind like poison. She was mine to reject, not yours to claim. Rowan. Her breath froze. He was somewhere beyond the tree line, hidden among his guards. But she could feel him. The bond between them flared painfully, that cruel, invisible tether that once linked their souls. It burned now, as though mocking her. Kale's head snapped toward the voice, a snarl ripping from his throat. He's here. Alara rose to her feet, hands trembling, power humming beneath her palms like trapped lightning. Another arrow flew. Kale turned just in time, but not fast enough. The steel struck deep, burying into his shoulder. He staggered, growling, teeth clenched, the scent of his blood flooding the air. "No!" Alara cried. She darted to him, catching his weight as he fell to one knee. "Kale." He forced a breath through gritted teeth. "Stay back." But she couldn't. Her hands pressed to his wound, glowing faintly silver. The flame inside her surged not in fear this time, but fury. Something broke open within her. The air shifted. The light that had once whispered beneath her skin roared to life. It started as a flicker, then grew, consuming the mist, the fear, the world. The silver flame erupted from her palms, pouring through the clearing in waves of living fire. It didn't burn the forest. It didn't destroy. It judged. The hunters froze mid-charge, their weapons raised, eyes wide in terror. The fire wove around them, tracing the outlines of their faces, their souls. Those who carried guilt, those who had slaughtered without honor, the flame touched and devoured. Screams echoed through the trees. Kale watched, half in pain, half in awe. Her power was breathtaking, terrible, divine. Alara stood, hair billowing, eyes blazing silver white. The markings from the shrine now spiraled up her arms, glowing like molten metal. The ground trembled beneath her feet. Rowan's voice faltered. "What have you done?" She turned toward the sound, her voice steady, colder than ice. "You called me cursed. But the moon made me her reckoning." A tremor rolled through the forest. "Show yourself, Rowan." He stepped from the shadows, armored and proud, the alpha who once called her his. But now his confidence faltered. The firelight reflected in his eyes, revealing something he'd never shown her before: fear. "Alara," he said, tone soft, coaxing. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing." Her gaze shifted to Kale, who still knelt bleeding, but watching her like she was the dawn itself. That look steadied her. "For years," she whispered, "you made me believe my power was poison. You took my name, my worth, my place among the pack. You burned everything I loved. But you forgot one thing, Rowan." Her voice deepened, echoing with something not entirely her own. "Flames don't die in the dark. They wait." Rowan roared, charging forward in wolf form, massive, white-furred, claws gleaming. Alara didn't flinch. Her eyes turned to silver fire. The flame within her answered with a roar of its own, blazing outward. It met him mid-air, wrapping around his form like a storm of light. He crashed to the ground, writhing, snarling but not burning. Not yet. The flame wasn't killing him. It was showing him everything he had done, every life he'd broken, every soul he'd condemned. His growls turned to screams. Kale struggled to his feet, blood dripping from his arm. "Alara, stop. If you cross this line, there's no going back." She turned to him, tears cutting through the glow on her cheeks. "He ruined everything." Kale took a step closer. "And if you destroy him, you'll lose what makes you different from him." The fire flickered. Her breath came hard. "He deserves it." Kale's voice softened. "So did I. But mercy saved me." For a long, fragile moment, she stood between vengeance and grace. Then she closed her eyes and the flame dimmed. Rowan collapsed, gasping, his fur fading back to flesh. The once mighty alpha lay broken in the mud, trembling before the power he'd rejected. Alara turned away. The silence that followed was heavier than any roar. Smoke hung in the air like memory. The forest creaked, as if releasing a long-held breath. Kale limped toward her, pressing a hand to his wound, his voice hoarse. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "No, I spared myself." He studied her, the fire still glowing faintly beneath her skin, her strength tempered by sorrow. "The world will come for you now. They'll fear you more than ever." She nodded slowly. "Let them." Kale's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile. "You're more dangerous than I thought." She met his gaze, a spark of warmth breaking through the exhaustion. "And you still followed me." "I didn't follow you," he murmured. "I found what I'd been searching for." Their eyes locked, flame to shadow, broken soul to broken soul. For a heartbeat, the war around them didn't exist. Then the wind shifted again. Distant howls echoed through the forest, not friendly, not forgiving. Kale's smile faded. They're regrouping. We need to move. Alara nodded, glancing back one last time at the clearing where her old life ended. Rowan lay unconscious, his symbol burning faintly in the dirt, the mark of a man who'd tried to own what the moon never meant him to. She turned away, her hand brushing Kale's arm as they stepped into the trees. His body tensed at her touch, but he didn't pull away. And so they left the clearing, two fugitives bound by blood and prophecy, stepping into a world that no longer had a place for either of them. The forest watched, whispering warnings, yet the path ahead shimmered faintly with light. Behind them, dawn broke, not gentle, but fierce, blazing across the treetops like a wound healing. For the first time, Alara didn't run from the fire. She carried it with her. The world had fought back, but she had survived it, and the silver flame was awake. The forest had fallen silent again, though the echoes of battle still lingered in the air. Every rustle of leaves felt like a memory of what they'd survived: blood, betrayal, prophecy. Night spread its silver cloak over the elderwood, and beneath it, two souls sought refuge in the only shelter they could find, a narrow cave carved into the mountainside, hidden by a curtain of moss and shadow. The world outside hunted them. Inside, another kind of danger waited, quieter, deeper, impossible to escape. Kale lay against the stone wall, his breath shallow. His shoulder bled through the makeshift bandage she'd tied hours ago. Even now, his skin was hot beneath her fingers, his pulse too fast. Alara sat close beside him, her knees drawn under her cloak, the dim glow of a small fire painting her face in shades of gold and ash. She pressed a damp cloth to his wound again, watching as his body shuddered in pain. "Hold still," she whispered. His lips curved faintly. "You're better at setting fire to forests than healing." She exhaled through her nose, not rising to the tease. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something harder to name. She'd seen him take a blow meant for her. She'd watched him bleed because of her. And the guilt cut deeper than any arrow ever could. "You shouldn't have done it," she murmured. "You could have died." Kale's eyes opened, silver still faint in the reflection of the flames. "I told you I wasn't going to let you die alone." Her chest ached. "You didn't have to risk everything." He turned his head toward her, the faintest smile ghosting his lips. "Why do you think I came for you, Alara?" She froze, her hand lingering over his wound. The fire cracked softly between them, filling the silence that followed. His voice dropped lower, roughened by pain and truth. "Because the moment you ran, the world changed." She swallowed hard, unable to look away from him. In the shifting light, his face was all angles and shadows, strength and wariness carved into every line. His hair fell loose across his forehead, streaked with dirt and dried blood. But it wasn't his wounds that made her heart tremble. It was the way he looked at her, not as a savior, not as a curse, but as if she were the only thing still tethering him to this broken world. Alara forced herself to focus, to breathe, to finish tending the bandage. But when her hand brushed his chest, she felt his heartbeat steady, defiant, alive, and her control faltered. Kale caught her wrist gently, his touch firm but not possessive. "Alara." Her name on his tongue sounded like a confession. She met his gaze, searching for anger, for distance, but found neither, only truth. For a long moment, neither spoke. The forest's quiet pressed in around them, the drip of water from the cave roof, the sigh of wind through the moss, the rhythm of two hearts that refused to slow. Finally, she whispered, "Why me?" He studied her for a long, unbearable second. Then, without looking away, he reached for the collar of his shirt and pulled it aside. There, across his shoulder and down his chest, a long, jagged scar gleamed in the firelight, old, deep, too deliberate to be an accident. Alara's breath hitched. "Who did that to you?" He looked into the fire, his voice quiet. "My brother." The words hung heavy in the cave. "He was alpha before me," Kale said, tone flat, controlled. "The moon's chosen. The pack adored him. But he feared prophecy, feared what I carried. The elders said the mark would pass to one born under bloodlight. That child was me." Alara's heart clenched. "He told me destiny was a curse, that I'd destroy what I tried to protect." His fingers brushed the scar absently. "When I challenged him, he didn't fight for dominance. He struck me down in front of them all. And when I woke, he was gone. Took the pack. Took our father's name. Left me to rot. The fire crackled, soft and cruel in its rhythm. Alara's voice barely rose above a whisper. And yet you saved me. Kale's gaze found hers again, raw, unguarded. Because when I saw you standing before the silver flame, I saw myself. The one the world tried to bury. Her throat tightened. He reached up, his fingertips brushing the edge of her jaw. And I swore I wouldn't let another soul be silenced for what they were born to be. Alara's breath caught. His touch was warm, his hand trembling slightly from exhaustion or maybe restraint. Kale, don't run from me again, he said softly. Not because of fear. Not because of him. The cave pulsed with silence, thick and fragile. Alara pulled back, just enough to break his touch. Her chest rose and fell, each breath uneven. Everyone who sees me ends up destroyed. You saw what I did out there. What I am. I saw power, he said, voice steady. I saw truth. You saw death, she countered. The fire obeyed me, Kale. It judged them. It burned what I couldn't control. He leaned forward, eyes steady on hers. And yet you stopped it. Her jaw tightened. Barely. Barely is enough. He said it so simply that for a heartbeat, she almost believed him. But the ghosts of the dead still clung to her. Their screams echoed in the quiet corners of her mind. She turned away, her arms wrapping around herself. You don't understand. Then make me. She hesitated, then spoke the words spilling like blood from a reopened wound. I was meant to be the Alpha's Luna, a symbol of balance, they said. But the moon marked me differently. When my powers surfaced, Rowan called it blasphemy. Said the gods cursed me. He locked me in the temple for a full cycle, no light, no air, only whispers from the priests saying I'd doomed us all. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. When they finally released me, I wasn't Alara anymore. I was the barren one, the woman no mate would claim. Kyle rose slowly, his body protesting every movement, but he didn't let the pain stop him. He came closer, each step deliberate, quiet, dangerous. When he stopped in front of her, the firelight flickered across both their faces, two shadows carved by fate. You're not barren, he said. You carry the silver flame. Life itself answers your call. Her breath shook. You don't know what that means. His hand lifted again, hesitant, reverent. He let his fingers trace the air just above her cheek, not touching, but close enough that she could feel the warmth. I know what it feels like to be feared for the gift you didn't ask for. Her lips parted, but no sound came. I know what it means, he continued, voice softer now, to wake every day and wonder if the world would be better if you never existed. Something inside her broke. Not loudly, not like a crack, but like glass sinking beneath water. She looked up, eyes glistening. Why tell me this? Because you asked why I risked everything for you. His hand finally closed the distance, fingers brushing her hair back from her face. It's because you made me remember what it's like to believe in something again. The fire burned lower. The shadows lengthened, wrapping around them like a secret. For a long moment neither moved. His breath mingled with hers, soft, uncertain, electric. Her pulse raced beneath her skin, and she knew he could hear it. Wolves always could. Kale leaned closer, slow enough for her to stop him. But she didn't. When his voice came, it was barely a whisper, rough and raw. I see you, Alara. All of you. Her heart stuttered. She could feel the heat of him, the weight of his gaze, the tremor in his breath, the unspoken promise hovering between them. For the first time, she wanted to let someone see her, truly see her without fear, without shame. But then the firelight caught the blood still seeping through his bandage, and reality snapped her back. She stood abruptly, stepping away, breaking the moment in two. Don't, she said, too quickly, too harshly. You don't know what you're doing. Kale's eyes darkened, not with anger, but something quieter. Hurt. I know what I'm feeling, he said. That's what scares me. Silence filled the space she left. The fire cracked, lonely, the sound almost like a heartbeat slowing down. Alara turned her back to him, her arms wrapped tight around herself. The night pressed close, heavy with things unsaid. Kale didn't speak again. He simply watched her, the flicker of flame painting her in silver and gold, the woman who carried both destruction and hope in her veins. When she finally lay down near the fire, exhaustion dragging her under, he stayed awake. His gaze lingered on her, the rise and fall of her breath, the faint glow still pulsing beneath her skin where the silver flame slept. He wanted to reach out, to touch, to promise, but he didn't, because love, in their world, was another kind of battlefield. And tonight, neither of them was ready to bleed again. Outside, the forest dreamed, unaware of the two broken hearts hidden beneath its canopy. The moon hung low, watching. Somewhere far away, wolves howled, mourning, warning, remembering. And in that cave, between firelight and shadow, trust was born. Fragile, frightening, beautiful. But in the realm of shifters and prophecy, even trust had a price. Dawn came softly, but its light brought no peace. The forest outside the cave shimmered with dew, fragile and quiet, as though unaware that everything within those trees was about to shatter. The first golden beams crept across Alara's face, brushing the traces of sleep from her lashes. For one blissful heartbeat, she forgot where she was, forgot the blood, the pain, the prophecy that clung to her name. She only knew warmth, firelight, safety, and then she realized Kale was gone. Her heart stilled. The fire had burned low. The moss where he'd been lying was cold. Her fingers brushed the spot. The scent of him still clinging to the air, pine, smoke, rain. But his absence struck like a blade. Alara rose, wrapping her cloak tight. The cave mouth opened to a mist-soaked morning. Through the trees, faint footsteps and voices drifted, too many to be just him. Her instincts sharpened. Wolves. She stepped out, breath misting. Between the trees, figures emerged, a dozen, maybe more. Broad shoulders, worn armor, cloaks marked with the sigil of the Shadowborn. Kale's pack. Relief bloomed for only a second before she saw the unease in their eyes. The way they stood, not with welcome, but with suspicion. And then Kale appeared. He walked through the mist like a man bearing the weight of 1,000 years, silent, resolute, shadowed. His gaze met hers, and something in it made her blood go cold. There was distance where warmth had been, restraint where fire once lingered. "Kale?" she whispered, voice thin. He didn't answer. The wolves parted for a man she didn't recognize, younger, leaner, eyes sharp like a blade unsheathed. His grin was wrong, too polished, too sure. "Alara of the Silver Flame," he said, bowing slightly. "We've heard whispers. It's an honor to finally see the curse for ourselves." Alara froze. The pack murmured. Words rippled through the clearing. Curse. Witch. Moon's betrayal. Kale's jaw tightened. "Watch your tongue, Varric." Varric's grin widened, but his eyes never left Alara. "Oh, I'm just saying what they already fear, Alpha. You brought her here. You hid her among us." He turned, addressing the gathering wolves. "Tell me how many have died in the forest this moon. How many strange fires have burned since she came?" Alara felt the air grow heavy, thick with doubt. Faces she didn't know, warriors, scouts, elders turned toward her with eyes full of unease. "Kale," she whispered again, stepping closer. "What is he talking about?" But before Kale could speak, Varric's voice rose, venom laced with reverence. "She carries the mark of the prophecy, the one who will end us all. The silver flame is no savior, it's the moon's punishment." The world seemed to tilt. Alara's heart hammered against her ribs. Her mind screamed to move, to deny, to flee, but her legs refused. "That's a lie," she said softly, voice breaking. "I never wanted this. I never—" "She doesn't deny it," a woman shouted from the crowd. "Look at her eyes, they shine like the flame." "Stay back," Kale growled, stepping between them. But his command was met with silence, no obedience. Not this time. Varric's words were oil, spreading, catching. "He brings her among us, hides her power, lets her walk into our sacred ground. You've seen the carvings burn where she steps. Kale," she whispered, desperate now, "tell them it's not true." But Kale didn't speak. He stood there, silent, eyes shadowed, torn, and that silence, it destroyed her. "Tell them," she repeated, voice trembling. "Tell them I'm not what they think I am." His throat worked, but no sound came. Her chest constricted, air burning in her lungs. "You don't believe them, do you?" He met her gaze at last. And in his silence, in that one heartbeat where he didn't reach for her, she found her answer. Something inside her cracked. Not just heartbreak, but something older, something deeper, the part of her that had dared to hope. She staggered back, her vision blurring. The murmurs turned to shouts, the forest closing in like a cage. "Monster! Cursed one! Destroy her before it's too late." Kale turned, his voice finally rising. Enough. But it was too late. Fear had teeth. And it sank into everything. Alara's pulse roared in her ears. The world burned not with flame, but with betrayal. The faces around her blurred, replaced by memories of another crowd. Another day, the altar. The white petals. Rowan's cold words. "You were never meant to be my Luna." Now Kale's silence became Rowan's echo. Her breath came ragged. The ground beneath her feet trembled. The flame inside her, the one she'd buried, began to stir. "Alara," Kale said, stepping forward, "listen to me." But she was already past listening. Tears spilled down her cheeks, searing hot. "You said you saw me," she whispered. "I do," he said, voice raw. But the word was her undoing. The moment he hesitated, the moment he let doubt slip through the cracks, the silver flame answered. The air split open. Light erupted from her chest, pure, wild, unstoppable. It tore through the clearing, setting fire to the earth itself. Trees screamed as bark turned to ash. Wolves fell to their knees, shielding their faces. Kale lunged toward her, not in anger, but in desperate reach. "Alara, stop." She looked at him through tears and fire. "I trusted you. I didn't betray you. Then why didn't you speak?" Her voice cracked, half fury, half grief. "Why did you let them call me a curse when you knew I was trying to save you?" Kale took a step forward. "Because if I defended you, they'd kill you before I could protect you." His words were drowned by the roar of the earth splitting apart beneath their feet. Flame rose, fierce and blinding silver, not red. It danced through the trees, consuming everything but her. And in that chaos, the prophecy whispered again, not in her mind, but through the wind itself. "The rejected shall rise. The shadow shall burn the moon's deception." The forest became her cathedral of wrath. Kale dropped to his knees, shielding his eyes, shouting her name. "Alara!" But she couldn't stop. The power had no mercy. No boundary, no end. Every heartbeat, every betrayal, every wound she'd ever swallowed now ignited around her. And yet, amidst that destruction, her tears didn't stop. Because power meant nothing when the one person she believed in no longer believed in her. The storm of flame reached its peak, and then, as suddenly as it had begun, it broke. The light collapsed inward, like a dying star, and Alara was gone. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of embers. Smoke drifted where she had stood moments before. The pack looked to their alpha, but Kale could not move. His hands trembled as he reached toward the scorched earth, fingers brushing against the faint warmth she left behind. Varric's voice came from the shadows, quiet but sharp. "You see now, Alpha, you brought ruin." Kale's head lifted slowly. His eyes glowed with something ancient, dangerous, not fury, but promise. "No," he whispered. "I brought truth." He stood, his body shaking with rage and grief. And as he turned toward the dark forest, the same forest that had swallowed her, his voice was barely human anymore. "I'll find her." The pack watched as he disappeared into the trees, swallowed by shadow and smoke. The fire still burned behind him, faint and defiant, the last proof that Alara, the cursed bride, the rejected flame, still lived somewhere out there. And the moon, high above, trembled beneath her own light. Betrayal is a strange kind of death. It doesn't stop your heart, it makes it beat against itself. And that morning, beneath the weight of fear and silence, Alara learned that even love can wear a mask. But what the world forgot was that masks burn just as easily as lies, and the silver flame had only begun to rise. Perfect, continuing directly from the end of Part 7, the grand betrayal. The mask drops. No recap, no filler, just pure narration, immersive, emotional, and sharply written. Here begins. The rain swallowed her screams. Alara ran until her lungs tore against the wind. until her bare feet bled from the thorns of the elderwood. The silver flame pulsed beneath her skin, wild, volatile, answering every tremor of her rage. Each tear that fell seared the ground, hissing into smoke. She wanted to stop, to breathe, to not exist. But the betrayal replayed Cale's silence. His eyes lowered when she needed him to stand beside her. He hadn't lifted a word, not one. The man who swore she was seen had turned into every other alpha before him, watching her burn to keep his pack warm. The storm howled like a living thing, drawn by her fury. Lightning clawed the sky, illuminating the ruins of an ancient temple half swallowed by vines. She collapsed beneath the stone archway, trembling, her silver aura flickering like dying embers. And there for the first time the flame spoke back. A whisper, soft and ancient, slid through her bones. Child of light and shadow, the bond must break before it binds. Her breath caught. She pressed her palms to the ground, the symbols of the silver flame pulsed faintly under her skin. The air around her shimmered. Visions flooded in Cale, alone, surrounded by his furious pack, the council roaring, his brother's voice cold and triumphant, calling him weak for protecting a cursed woman. Cale's fist struck the earth. But when he lifted his head, she saw it regret. Too late. The vision shattered as she screamed, her voice echoing through the ancient ruins. The flame burst outward, carving lines of molten light across the stones. For a heartbeat, the forest stilled, as if holding its breath. Then, from far away a howl answered. Deep, familiar, wounded. Cale. He found her 3 nights later. The moon hung low, red as blood. Cale moved through the forest like a ghost, his body battered, his scent masked by ash and rain. He had lost half his men to the chaos that followed her outburst. The rest had turned on him, believing the prophecy, believing she was the spark that would end their reign. And perhaps they were right. When he saw the faint silver glow through the trees, his chest tightened. She was there, sitting in the hollow of the temple ruins, her hair tangled, her dress torn, the light from her skin illuminating carvings long forgotten. She didn't look up when he stepped closer. "Why are you here?" Her voice cracked. "To finish what they started?" Cale swallowed hard. "I came to finish what I never should have let begin." Her laugh was hollow. "That sounds like something a coward rehearses." "I was." His voice broke. "And I lost more than you'll ever know because of it." Silence pressed between them, heavy, trembling. The scent of burnt cedar and blood lingered in the air, remnants of the battle she had unknowingly summoned. Alara turned to him slowly. Her eyes, once soft, were shards of silver flame. "You hesitated, Cale. When they accused me, you said nothing. You could have stopped them." He stepped closer, rain tracing the scars on his jaw. "If I'd defended you, they would have killed you before you took another breath." "And now?" she whispered. "What do you think I am now?" He looked at her, really looked, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. "You're everything they feared. And everything I can't stop wanting." Her heart clenched, torn between fury and longing. She hated the way his voice cracked at the end. She hated that she believed it. When she spoke, her words trembled. "You're not supposed to want me. You're supposed to survive me." Cale smiled, faintly broken, reverent. "I stopped surviving the moment you ran." He dropped to one knee, the alpha's pride stripped away, his hands pressed into the dirt. "You were right to hate me. I didn't believe in you not enough. But I will burn everything left of my name to keep you safe." She stared down at him, torn. The rain softened, as if listening. "Words," she whispered. "The world is full of dying men with pretty words." Cale lifted his gaze. "Then I'll prove mine in silence." He rose, turned, and walked into the darkness. Alara blinked, startled. "Where are you going?" "To the Shadow Council," he said without turning. "To give them what they want, my life. It's the only way they'll call off the hunt for yours." Her chest seized. "Cale, no." He was gone before she could move, his scent swallowed by rain and pine. Days passed. Alara tried to convince herself she didn't care, that his choices were his burden, not hers. But each night, the bond she tried to sever still pulsed faintly, a whisper of his heartbeat beneath her ribs. The silver flame burned restless. It showed her flashes of him shackled, surrounded by alphas bearing the mark of the council. Cale knelt before them, head bowed, chains biting into his wrists. "You consorted with the cursed one," the eldest alpha spat. "I did," Kale answered. "And you harbor feelings for her still?" "Until my last breath." The council's verdict was simple: death by eclipse. Alara's hand tightened around the edge of the temple stone. Her breath came in sharp bursts. The silver flame inside her shuddered, no longer a curse, but a call. She rose. "If they want to kill a monster, let them see what one truly looks like." The night of the eclipse arrived. The forest was silent, the kind of silence that precedes chaos. The Shadow Council stood atop their sacred grounds, Kale bound to an obsidian pillar, his blood seeping into the soil. The moon dimmed, its light fading into crimson shadow. The first alpha raised his blade. Then, the ground trembled. Wind tore through the clearing, carrying silver fire that burned but did not consume. Alara stepped from the smoke, her eyes twin suns, her power unfurling like a storm-given breath. "Release him," she said. Her voice was no longer a whisper, it was command, ancient and absolute. The council froze. One alpha sneered. "You dare command us, cursed one?" She extended her hand. The man's blade melted to ash. "You should have feared me sooner." Kale struggled against his chains. "Alara." "Don't." She turned toward him. "You gave your life to save mine. Let me return the favor." He shook his head, desperate. "They'll twist you, they'll use that power against everything you are. Then I'll make sure there's nothing left for them to use." She stepped into the circle, her silver flame spreading outward, carving symbols into the earth. Each pulse of light tore through the council's power, unraveling centuries of control and deceit. The ground split, revealing roots of the ancient trees, glowing with the same light that burned in her veins. One by one, the alphas fell to their knees, not from submission, but from revelation. The prophecy whispered once more, carried by the dying wind: "The rejected shall rise. The shadow shall claim what the moon denied." Alara reached for Kale's chains. They turned molten and fell away. His body slumped forward, weak but breathing. She caught him. His blood streaked her hands, but the warmth of his touch steadied her trembling. "You shouldn't have come," he murmured. "I tried not to," she whispered. "But you're the only thing that ever felt like choice." His eyes met hers, weary, reverent. "Then choose me. Not because the flame binds us, because you want to." The words pierced deeper than any wound. For the first time since the night she was rejected, she didn't feel cursed, she felt alive. The silver flame receded, dimming to a soft glow that surrounded them both. Alara leaned closer, her forehead resting against his. "Then I choose you, but God's help you if you ever hesitate again." Kale smiled, blood on his teeth. Noted. As the eclipse faded, dawn bled into the horizon. The silver flame withdrew into the earth, leaving behind silence and something new. Not peace. Not yet. But the beginning of it, because sometimes redemption isn't born from victory. It's born from finally being seen and staying. The battlefield lies quiet. Smoke curls through the ruins of the Shadow Council's ground once sacred, now nothing but scorched ash and silver dust. The wind moves slow, almost reverent, as though afraid to disturb the silence left behind. The moon, pale and fractured, hangs above them, flickering red like a dying ember. Its light catches the wet sheen of blood on stone, the shimmer of firelight fading along Alara's skin. She lies still. The silver flame that once blazed bright as dawn now glows faintly, soft as candlelight before it gutters. Her chest rises shallowly, every breath a fragile thread between life and oblivion. Kale kneels beside her, his body trembling from exhaustion and grief. His hands, rough and blood-streaked, cradle her face as if afraid she'll crumble into ash if he lets go. "Alara." His voice is barely a whisper. "Don't you dare leave me." She stirs faintly, a sound caught between pain and peace. The bond between them hums weakly, its pulse fading like the last heartbeat of a dying star. Around them, the world holds its breath. The surviving wolves watch from a distance, uncertain, shaken. The forest itself seems to grieve. The trees bend slightly, as if bowing to what has been lost. Or perhaps what has just been born. Kale's thumb brushes her cheek, smearing soot into soft streaks across her skin. He lowers his forehead to hers, breathing her in like a prayer he's too afraid to speak. Stay, he murmurs. Stay with me. I'll face the moon, the council, the gods, anything, just stay. Her eyes flutter open, faintly silver, flickering with the last spark of the flame. Kale, she whispers, her voice a ghost of wind through the trees. Do you feel it? He frowns, panic threading his voice. Feel what? The quiet. Her lips twitch into the faintest smile. It's never been this quiet inside me. And for a heartbeat, he understands that the silence she feels isn't peace. It's the stillness that comes before something breaks forever. Her hand slips weakly from his grip, her fingers brushing his wrist. The silver flame coils faintly around their joined skin, a soft, aching light that binds, trembles, and begins to fade. The prophecy whispers again, distant, echoing, cruel in its truth. The one who burns brightest will fade first. Kale's breath catches. He shakes his head, refusing the words, refusing the fate carved long before they met. No, he growls, voice cracking. You are not prophecy. You are choice. You are mine. He presses his palm against her heart, as though he can force his strength into her fading light. Do you hear me? His voice breaks. You are not done. The silver flame flickers once, twice, then dims. Kale's roar splits the night. It's not the cry of an alpha, not the command of a warrior, it's the sound of a soul being torn in half. The forest echoes it back, the wolves joining in a lament for their fallen Luna, for the flame that burned too fiercely for this world. The wind carries her scent, wild lavender, smoke, and moonlight, until even that begins to fade. He gathers her into his arms, the weight of her too light, too still. The world tilts around him, not with power, not with rage, but with unbearable stillness. And then faintly something shifts. Her mark, the silver flame etched into her skin, pulses once. A soft light spreads through her veins, then into his threads of silver weaving through his heartbeat. Kale gasps. The bond surges, not breaking, not burning, but merging. Her light flows into him, like water through cracked stone, like dawn returning to a broken sky. Her body relaxes in his arms, her breathing faint but steady, not gone, not gone. Kale exhales a sob that shakes him to his core. Thank you, he whispers, though he doesn't know if he's thanking the moon, the flame, or her. Above them, the red moon begins to fade back to white. The forest sighs, and the first hint of dawn touches the horizon. But even in the soft light of morning, Kale's eyes are haunted. Because deep down, he knows what the prophecy meant: the one who burns brightest will fade first. She hasn't died, but something within her has gone quiet. The silver flame now sleeps. And the world, every pack, every alpha, every shadow of power will feel its awakening when she stirs again. He lifts his gaze to the horizon. The wind shifts, carrying whispers from the surviving wolves: fear, awe, devotion. The silver flame was not a curse, it was a beginning. Kale looks down at Alara, his voice low, trembling with reverence and warning. When you wake, love, the world won't be ready for you. He presses a kiss to her forehead, the promise of forever echoing between them, quiet, fragile, unbroken. Fade to silence. The camera, if there were one, would linger on the entwined marks along their hands. The silver flame, once fierce and consuming, now glows faintly in both their veins, a single shared light. The prophecy echoes one last time, softer now, like a lullaby sung by the moon itself. The rejected shall rise, the shadow shall claim what the moon denied. Then darkness. Would you have feared her, or followed her into the fire? If her story lit something inside you, subscribe to Moonlight's Chronicle, because here, we tell tales that burn, heal, and haunt. Rain falls again. Not the cleansing kind, but the heavy, weeping kind that tastes of iron and memory. It falls upon the ruined battlefield, washing away the blood and ash, but not the echoes of what was lost here. The air still trembles with the residue of power, the silver flame's last breath lingering like mist across the charred ground. The forest has gone quiet. Even the wolves do not howl tonight. Somewhere among the wreckage, the last embers of the campfire sputter, a lonely glow in a world reborn and broken at once. Kyle stands motionless beside it, his cloak soaked, his eyes hollow yet burning. In his arms, Alara sleeps still, pale, suspended between the world of breath and something deeper. The bond that once roared between them now whispers faintly, as though sleeping too. He kneels, placing her gently upon the moss. His fingers brush the streaks of ash from her cheek. She doesn't stir. The rain gathers on her lashes, turning them to tiny jewels that tremble but never fall. "Rest," he murmurs, his voice rough, reverent. "But don't forget me when you wake." He presses his forehead to hers just once, then stands. The wolves of his pack wait at a distance, their forms shadowed beneath the dripping pines. None speak, none move. Even they can feel it, the weight of something vast shifting beneath the surface of this moment. Cale's gaze drifts to the horizon, where storm clouds bruise the sky. He can feel it, that this peace is only a pause, a breath between wars, a heartbeat between dawn and darkness. Behind him, Alara's hand twitches a flicker, faint as a ghost of fire. The rain hisses softly over the earth, and from the edge of the clearing a sound footsteps, slow, deliberate. A figure steps through the mist, cloaked in black, face hidden beneath a hood. The figure moves with the kind of calm that only power carries, not hurried, not hesitant, certain, cold. They walk among the ashes, boots crushing the remnants of burned leaves and bloodied petals. Their hand pale, gloved, reaches down and picks up a shard of something glimmering silver, a fragment of stone from the altar that once bore the mark of the silver flame. The figure studies it in silence. Rain runs down the back of their cloak, tracing faint patterns of light. The fragment hums faintly, alive, whispering, remembering. A deep voice breaks the quiet. Low, ancient, resonant enough to make the ground itself respond. The flame has risen. The figure turns the stone over in their hand, watching the faint silver light pulse against the darkness of their palm. But the true Alpha sleeps still. The forest seems to recoil at the words. Leaves rustle, though there is no wind. And then from somewhere deeper in the dark comes a growl. Low, guttural, unnatural. It does not belong to Cale. It echoes through the trees, vibrating in the bones of the earth. A warning. A promise. The figure lifts their head, and beneath the hood, faint red eyes glint not from reflection, but from something alive, burning from within. "So," the voice murmurs, "the moon's favorite child defies her fate." The figure drops the fragment of silver stone. It lands softly in the mud, where rain quickly buries it. "Let her burn. Let her rise. It will make the fall that much sweeter." Another voice answers, whispering like a hiss of steam from nowhere and everywhere. Feminine, cold. "You forget yourself, old wolf." The moon remembers. The hooded figure's lips twitch in something that isn't quite a smile. "Then let her remember me." The forest responds. The light flickers. The rain grows colder. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howls, one not bound by pack or law. Its call pierces the air, stretching across valleys and mountains. The other wolves raise their heads, unease rippling through their fur. Cale's eyes snap open. His body stiffens. He knows that sound. It's not one of his. Not Rowan. Not of this realm. He turns, his gaze scanning the horizon, his instincts screaming. And then he feels it, a pull deep in his chest, in the bond that ties him to Alara. Her heart, faint as it is, beats once, and the silver flame flickers beneath her skin in response. The two pulses, hers, and the one in the distance, echo each other. An unseen rhythm. A connection. Cale's breath turns sharp, his blood runs cold. "No," he whispers. "It can't be." But it is. The prophecy's final verse, the one the elders refuse to speak, drifts through his mind, heavy as thunder. "The flame shall wake the shadow, and the shadow shall rise wearing the face of love." The rain falls harder, almost drowning the heartbeat of the earth. The figure in the distance lifts their hood slightly, revealing a glimpse of silver hair not unlike Alara's. And then they vanish. The rain slows. The forest holds its breath again. But beneath the ground, deep in the ancient roots of the elderwood, something begins to stir, a low, trembling hum that spreads outward, unseen but unstoppable. The war isn't over. Cale looks down at Alara once more. Her mark glows faintly in her sleep. Her body peaceful, her expression soft, unaware of the storm now gathering for her. He kneels beside her, whispering to the night, "Whatever comes, they'll have to go through me first." The fire beside them dies with a hiss, leaving only the sound of rain and the faint beat of two hearts that no longer belong solely to themselves. And somewhere, beyond the veil of night and time, The moon turns her face, her light flickering like a dying flame, as if mourning what she knows is coming. The silver flame will rise again, but so will the darkness it once banished. This was never the end. It was only the first spark. The moon remembers, and her story has only just begun. Subscribe to Moonlight's Chronicle, where every heartbeat hides a secret, and every ending is only the beginning.